way they
beginning of one of the most
as we mentioned earlier, we're also talking about
5 shipping and handling to.
What's the first thing you think of when you hear that your unit is going to be audited? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about our company's goals?
There is nothing quite like the turquoise room to be found anywhere. The first and only private dining room on rail.
But believe it or not, customer satisfaction, world-class service, is achieved in part by strong internal controls, and unit audits are part of that controlled environment. That's why we are able to provide top quality products and services, and how we are able to provide progressive training to our associates so they can assume greater responsibilities and experience more job satisfaction. As erratic as business can be, it's easy to predict what would happen to our company without a strong internal control environment. That's why when you hear the words, "you're going to be audited," you should realize that an audit is the best way to evaluate your unit's operational efficiency. You and your team will discuss how you can do this yourself by using the audit self-assessment.
That Senator's dame is in the stands. He's got his mind on other things. All right, let's go right over the lunk's head. Number 86. Come on!
And an internal audit is one of the best ways unit managers can ensure that their associates' job satisfaction is as high as Marriott's product quality.
Independence together and always in a
that's from the extended business trip.
Hello, I'm Terry King, and welcome to Meet the Prez. All week I've been promising you the president on tonight's show. So let's cut to the chase and introduce Mr. Bob Jansen, President of Corporate Services for MMS. Mr. Jansen has over 20 years of experience in the food service and restaurant industry. He has served 2 years as Senior Vice President, Corporate Services Division of Marriott Management Services, and also as Senior Vice President, International Sales and Support Services for MMS for 6 years. Mr. Jansen has agreed to join us live via satellite to talk to us about relevant internal controls issues.
Thanks, Terry. We're all familiar with the building block concept, which emphasizes the strength of every block in a structure, whether you're talking about a family, a building, or a company. In this company and in this division, one of the most critical building blocks is the unit manager. Today's success and tomorrow's successful growth depends heavily on each unit manager's capability, responsibility, and accountability. When I say capability, I'm talking about skill in preparing food for customers or providing customers with the services they've asked for. But being capable also means improving the efficiencies of client operations, collecting related sales dollars, and reducing operating costs. In other words, I'm talking about operational excellence, the foundation of our competitive advantage. Unit managers are responsible for monitoring the internal control environment. A strong internal control environment does more than ensure operational efficiencies. It provides a framework in which we can satisfy our customers' needs for world-class products and services as well as our associates' desire for job satisfaction. All this happens within an organization that's managed by specific standard operating procedures, or SOPs. Unit managers are accountable for the consistency with which SOPs are followed. This type of uniformity is important for a number of reasons. SOPs make it easier to train our associates in jobs that are clearly defined. SOPs help identify performance inefficiencies more quickly, and they also make it easier for an associate to assume additional responsibilities. Thanks in part to the work of our unit managers, Corporate Services has achieved a leadership position in the U.S. marketplace. To remain competitive, we are depending on our unit management team more than ever to provide high-quality products and services and to maintain the standards we have set as a preferred employer.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Jansen. I like what you had to say about the importance of internal controls and how it ties into your division's growth and customer and associate satisfaction. If I could only afford to invest in more Marriott International stock, I could probably retire before I'm 80. When we come back, an unusual look at women who marry...
Good morning. I had a speech written, but I think it's better I speak to you from my heart.
Walker.
On! We're
Think of this.
George. The beginning of one of
Oh, right. Anita Scoop here. Just moments ago, this building was filled with associates and customers. Then word spread that auditors had shown up at this MMS unit. You could see for yourself what the reaction is. Chaos, terror, and pandemonium. Despite the confusion, I've been able to identify those two auditors, and they're here with me now. Kim Baker is a senior supervisor, and Rich Mariani, a senior auditor in Marriott's Internal Audit Department.
Pleased to meet you.
Sorry, it's just that
You don't need to explain. We get that reaction all the time from people in the field.
Listen, you don't have anything to do with the FCC, do you?
I guess people are just naturally afraid of auditors. You know, the way they are of being crushed by a collapsing building or being asked to program their VCR.
I don't believe in being afraid. I just get one of my kids to program that darn VCR.
But you do believe in controls, don't you?
Certainly. And I'm the one controlling this interview. Now, exactly what are internal controls?
I know you love to talk about this. Would you answer the question?
Thanks, Kim. Internal controls make sure these 5 basic standards are in place. An organization which provides appropriate segregation of functional responsibilities.
A system of authorization and recording procedures adequate to provide reasonable control over assets, liabilities, revenues, and expenses.
Define procedures to be followed in the performance of duties and functions for all positions.
Personnel who've been provided with the appropriate training to satisfactorily complete their responsibilities, and
A reliable system which will monitor and detect any material errors, irregularities, and/or frauds occurring in the operations. Do you want to spin again?
or by a vowel.
I think I'll try and solve it. Right. So, how much advance notice do you give the units before they're audited?
Advance notice?
Are you saying that internal audit conducts most MMS audits without advance notice?
Of course.
Doesn't that seem a little unfair?
Not if you consider that the whole point of an audit is to ascertain how well the business is doing on a normal daily basis. If we gave advance notice, why throw the whole place into a frenzy of abnormal activity and blow the whole thing?
I see. You mean it'd be like, well, cleaning the house before the housekeeper arrived. Then you'd never know what problems really existed in the field.
Precisely.
So, what are you trying to do when you perform a unit audit?
Oh, that's easy. We're trying to evaluate a unit's operational control environment.
And identify any processes or procedures that aren't working effectively.
Well, gee, that makes sense. Of course. Well, that about...
An audit also helps assess risk and quantifies cost of problems that are identified.
and enables us to work with unit management to develop solutions to those problems.
Great. Well, it's been real.
But we don't stop there. We train associates to recognize control weaknesses before a fraud situation exists.
Oh, I just hate fraud. We all do.
That's entirely understandable. So, how do you improve your audit scores?
Basically, if you follow our audit guidelines, your worries are over.
Those audit guidelines?
That's right. With this baby, you can be more confident about how well you'll score on the audit and that your business is running efficiently.
We did a little research and discovered that these were the areas which Internal Audit looks at. Cash handling and depositing, cash security, sales reconciliations, accounts payable and receivable, inventory and purchasing, financial reporting, food and physical safety. Well, you heard it here first. Audits are in, and auditors aren't so scary after all. They're here to stay. Back to you, Peter.
Which is being sold.
Hey, favorite song. I don't know.
All right, you guys, let's do this one more time. How are audits scored?
On a point system, Coach.
And what's the score for a green audit?
88 to 100%, Coach.
That's right. A green audit means that your control environment is strong and the risk of fraud is weak. What about a yellow audit?
70 to 87%, Coach.
Yellow means you're okay, but it indicates that there are control areas that you need to pump up. Now, how about a red audit?
Below 70%, Coach.
Red, when fraud's been uncovered or when the potential for fraud is high. Red is unsatisfactory for a team that wants to win.
We want to win, Coach.
And never, never forget. What counts 25% of your audit score? What counts 25% of your audit score? Come on, people. Hit me with it!
Food and physical safety, Coach.
And welcome to the third class of Audit Art 101, an overview of the influence of poor internal controls on art over the past several centuries. Let's get right to it, shall we? Certainly the exploration of the world by Europeans was supported by strong controls practiced by those who financed these many and diverse expeditions. Unfortunately, not all ventures were well managed. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. This audit artist has captured the essence of the consequences for poor cash handling and security. The waves representing the uncertain whereabouts of the money itself, the shifting tides of operating procedures, the sinking ship, clearly indicating that the funds needed to maintain it have been misappropriated, stolen, or lost. A chilling portrayal. Next. An audit portrait artist captured this prominent unit manager in a good mood. Notice the "I don't need to follow standard operating procedures" swagger to his countenance. But Mr. Know-It-All came up short when he failed to reconcile his cash to sales. His attempts to make up the losses resulted in shortcutting his business and his customers. And as you can clearly see, here, here, and here, he lost his shirt as well as other articles of clothing. Yes, well. This manager was clearly regarded as a saint by those who knew her well. She was responsible for payroll. Notice the halo circling her head is gold. Unfortunately, her time record maintenance was far from divine. She paid her associates the wrong amount and ended up being just another manager singing the blues. A tragic tale told all too often. That concludes today's lecture. Your assignment for next week's class is Chapter 17, when we will be studying a series of paintings depicting an auditor who came for a day but stayed forever. A most passionate and thrilling exhibit.
Now there will be a discussion of the audit process and understanding internal controls using your workbook.
Be checking out.
But when we get
Do just like they do.
Side and video.
You know, everyone likes a strong internal control environment. I know I do, man. And every time I step into one, I feel so strong, balanced, powerful, and successful. But I didn't always feel that way about internal controls, you know? Nope, not till I started talking to some of these guys and gals. Yeah. Oh, feel a power with me. Yes.
How do you survive an internal audit?
I did not really get a phone call. You don't get a phone call. The internal auditors just appear at your door.
My administrative assistant said, Jean, you have some visitors here. There's 3 gentlemen. They all have suits on, Jean.
With a briefcase in their hand and a blue suit.
And you go, oh.
And you put a smile on your face and welcome them into your office.
Walked in, introduced myself, and they said, we've come to spend some time with you. We're going to audit your account.
Walk up to you and say, hello, we are such and such from Internal Auditing Department. We're here to do an internal audit.
I think the usual approach is a fearful one toward internal audit.
Because at times I think a lot of people feel they're very intimidating. They are not. I had a very positive experience with them.
I've come from an environment that was audited quite regularly because of our contract requirements, so it became part of our standard operating procedure, actually, that internal audit would visit us rather regularly.
I took that opportunity as a learning opportunity for myself because I had a couple of questions in certain areas, and I told them I was not clear on this and I would like to get their opinion.
So I didn't look at it as a frustrating challenge that you might look at it sometimes. I looked at it, I want people to see just what a really great job that we as a team that opened this account just 6 months ago did and had done and will continue to keep doing. And we came out with a green audit and we were really, really happy. It was like, all right.
Yes. Oh, controls.
Yes, those good internal controls are very important to the business and to my success.
An environment with strong controls enables us to know what's expected of us, helps us to understand what procedures we need to follow, and helps us to do our job properly rather than trying to have to figure out as each step of the process whether or not we're doing the right thing.
I know when the associates are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and I don't necessarily need to go and check behind them. All I have to do is basically look at the system, look at the end result, and see where they are, and do the surprise audits once in a while to keep an eye on the business.
I'm going through and I'm doing a spot check. I'm trying to do some pre-work that if the auditors came tomorrow, would I pass? You pull out the audit packet that you receive and you go down the list. You look at the segregation of duties. You look in your storeroom areas, your cash handling.
It's a headache at times because we don't have the labor, we don't have the time. It's another nuisance, so to say, when we have to put in those extra minutes to put in those numbers on the form. However,
a strong internal control environment makes my job and my staff's jobs easier because we know what's expected of us. We know that we're serving safe food to our customers. We know that we're monitoring our cash controls, and we know where the cash is coming in and how it's being handled once it's in our hands, and we know that we're maximizing our profit as a result.
I see. So you have trouble with control.
Yes, Dr. Ruthless, it's my payroll control.
I sense confusion. Do you pay for scheduled time or for actual time that the associate puts in on the job? Listen to Dr. Ruthless. This is not unusual, and there are things you can do to fix the problem. First, and this is very important, associates are paid for actual time worked, not their scheduled time.
It's just that I'm so uncertain about whether my associates are taking lunch breaks.
Well, I'm not surprised, Poopsie. The answer is time cards and time sheets.
Yeah,
You, as a manager, you approve them. The associates punch in and out for meal breaks, and any changes to time cards must be initialed by you and by the associate.
Yes, that's right. But it's so hard to get everyone to punch in and out and initial their time card adjustments.
Yeah. Get over it. It's got to be done. Now, let's move on. Last week we discussed that you would have to counsel associates and write them up if they fail to follow standard procedures. Make them responsible and hold them accountable. Tell me, Liebchen, did your mother or father have this problem when you were growing up? Oops, look at the time. You got to go, Poopsie. Misery's money. Next.
To close this.
Strong internal controls depend on team effort. Always divide tasks between at least 2 people. A system of checks and double checks is less likely to break down and much more likely to limit mistakes and fraud.
I take in the cash, I count the cash, I make the deposit, I take the deposit to the bank. I order the donuts, I receive the donuts, I stock the shelves, I take the inventory, I set up the vendors, I approve the invoices, I process the transmittals, I calculate the hours, I process the time cards, I hand out the checks, I review the payroll register, and then the client came in and asked me for 600 glazed non-fat donuts. There's gotta be a better way.
Now it's time to stop the videotape and have a discussion on payroll controls, cash handling, and the segregation of duties.
At some
No, it's not it's Right, so welcome back. I'm Venus Ytrap, and I'm here to take your calls, answering the question, why me when you've fallen into that big Y trap? You're like on the air. Speak.
Why me, Venus? Why was my unit chosen for an audit? I mean, was it my sign? Aquarians are always a target.
Well, certainly some things are like in the stars, but when you're talking about audits, I think it comes down to risk. Is that cool, Rich?
Yeah, Venus. Yeah, Venus, it's cool. But when we say risk, we don't mean there's something wrong.
Then why the heck are you doing one?
Yeah.
Well, if you have a high sales volume, or perhaps the last time Internal Audit came by, you didn't do too well. Or if it's been 3 years or more since you've been audited, that's what we consider risk.
But there are still a lot of units that fit that description. So why me?
Well, a certain number of units with the highest risk are chosen from each product line. An audit can also be requested by division or regional management.
Pisces or Capricorn, most likely.
Whatever. Take care. Venus Ytrap, I'm here to hear you.
Darling, I don't understand. Why the big deal about the Crime Information Network? I mean, they say we must put up a poster. And it's got to be the original one, too? I have community service, darling. I don't have time to get an original.
Well, unfortunately, darling, you have no choice. That information gives all associates the opportunity and the phone numbers to anonymously report any type of business abuse. You know, like fraud and harassment and discrimination, that kind of stuff.
So Marriott's really serious about all this ethical conduct stuff, huh?
Like totally smacks of seriousness, if you know what I mean, and I think you do.
Yeah, smarty pants. Got to go. Goulash burning.
Bye-bye. Before we continue, I want to introduce our guest once again for the listeners just joining us. Rich Mariani. Oh, almost world-famous auditor. Hey, Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm psyched about being on the radio, Venus. Those constant face-to-face rejections really hurt my feelings.
I hear you. Just because you're an auditor doesn't mean you have bad karma, right? Next caller. Speak.
So let's say an auditor, like one of those nerdy accounting types, comes in and talks to my manager. How does the auditor know he's getting the whole story?
Awesome question. I'll ask the nerd. I mean, Rich.
You know, auditors collect audit evidence by many means. Evidence is collected through discussions with managers and hourly associates. Auditors also consider the information they observe firsthand. For example, they might look to see if the safe is on daylock. and testing a sample of documents can show whether procedures are consistently being followed.
Oh, that's a good trick, Rich, but for our purely listening audience, which is like totally everybody, it'll be hard to see the chart, man.
Oh, yeah.
Next question.
Is it necessary to conduct surprise audits for all cashiers, even students who don't work very often?
Yes, it is. We have to be able to detect errors in cash handling and misappropriations. You wouldn't want anyone to continue to do his or her job wrong.
Wow, yeah, or worse yet, to steal your sales? Bummer.
How can a small unit with only one manager comply with the policy of segregation of duties?
When there's only one manager, it's essential to delegate some responsibilities to a supervisor or trusted associate. Properly delegating does more than segregate duties. It develops your associates and allows them to learn new responsibilities.
Wow, well, like, that's the signal that our time is warped, man. I mean, up. My thanks to my guest. This is Radio Rich.
Right.
Right.
Thanks, but I'm sure I'll be seeing some of you soon, in person.
Come back tomorrow when we're talking about how and when to complete a unit cash report.
Wow, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Till then, this is Venus Flytrap saying, don't just ask why you have to work smarter, just do it and stay totally prepared for your next audit. All right, that's not too bad for an auditor.
And with the cold front, we still...
Hello! I'm Julia Wild, ready to go wild on safety issues. Why is food safety important? Well, a foodborne illness or death is a recipe for complete and total disaster. It would be a catastrophe for our company, not to mention the person involved. That's why food safety is worth 15% of an internal audit. Now, where is it? Oh! You know, sometimes people ask me, Julia, why is physical safety such a big deal in the internal audit? I tell you, I get this question every time I take out my carving knife. Well, dear heart, safety affects the entire wild world. Everyone, our customers and our associates. That's why it's worth 10% of the audit. Now, food and physical safety audits are weighted on a point system, like everything else in internal auditing. Getting 100% of the total points available is a recipe for success every time. Now, no one likes a failure in the kitchen. Look at this, will you? That's the last recipe I take from a relative. Every time, total failure. That's the way it is with food safety, too. Some things automatically fail you. If no hand sink is available for associates, whether in production or toilet areas, if ground beef or eggs are purchased from a non-approved vendor, I don't care how good a price you get, you can't do it. If meat is ground at the unit, no. If hamburger is not cooked to 155 degrees, that's Fahrenheit, fellow gastronomies. And if fresh eggs are used in a recipe that's not cooked adequately or not cooked at all, zap that. Now, you're asking me, Julia, how am I going to make sure everything is perfectly under control, eh? It's wildly easy. Just pick up your copy of this. Or you could get it by writing me, Julia Wild, in care of this station. Remember, the auditors are all certified food handlers, and they use this in their audits. Be tough on yourself, food lovers. I heard they're really by the book on this one. Ta-ta for now. Bon appetit. How about some cake?
Now's the time to turn off your television and review the answers to your audit self-assessment.